everybody's like, yeah. So I try to help out where I can for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's one of those things where kind of like where Livewire comes in. So on our website, we literally tell you how to get started. It's get your Class A CDL with no
Yep.
restrictions. Get your Flaggers card and first aid certified. And then apply for a groundman position. Or you can find groundman positions online where there are open calls. Colorado has some open calls right now, I think. But it just depends. Like if you once you get in, the biggest thing though is experience. Like if you sign up for
Yeah.
the apprenticeship program and you have no experience and you do your interview, they're probably not gonna let you in. Like they just probably won't. They're gonna say, go get a groundman job, get experience, and come back to us. This is what happened to Austin. Graduated Lion School and got interviewed right away. Like, which usually doesn't actually happen. There is really no benefit towards going to Lion School as far as getting a job straight out.
Yeah.
They might kind of
That's
like
what I
sell you
had.
on
That
that,
was
but
my biggest one too. That's my number 2 question. Should I go to line school? And I said, if you want, but honestly, if you get in with the union, it's free. I was like,
it
because
is
you're going to
free.
get that on the job training. I was like, but hey, if you want to pay that, I said, I'm not going to stop you from doing you. If you want to go to line school, great. I mean, I've had locals now that where they're at. That's the first question they ask. You gone to line school or done anything like that? And I mean, I've seen a few guys are like, yeah. And they're like, all right, cool, great. Something at least,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
helps you out, but
So like
it's,
the bridge that we were trying to gap with Livewire Academy specifically was giving you confidence of getting into the trade or giving you a solid foundation of knowledge.
you know,
And a lot of it is pretty proprietary information that you well, I mean, you'll get it from podcasts, you get it from searching around, but if you're serious about getting into the trade and you just want to figure it all out in one time crunch, that's accurate information right there. Now that we have like implemented a flashcard system and whatnot, and we're doing podcasts like this just to bring more awareness to the trade. The other, like the flip side of this is um, 5 years from now, there's only going to be so many people working in the trade. There's only going to be able to so many young people who are in the trade. A lot of the older guys are retiring, and
you
unfortunately, I don't see a lot of marketing behind the line trade career specifically. So a lot of kids don't know about it.
hmm
The issue then becomes if a kid knows about the dirt world, knows how to become a grader, a machine operator, or a plumber, electrician, and they can make almost just as good as money, right? Why are people going to become linemen? Because it's hard work. It's harder to get in, and it's not advertised, right? Back in the '90s, I believe we've had like a 20 or 30% decline in actual line workers since the '90s, and that number is growing and growing. There's younger people getting into the trade more and more, and that old knowledge isn't being passed down, unfortunately. But it's going to be a massive competition for workers. There's going to be a massive shortage, and in this trade, it's essential and necessary to have
yeah,
workers right now because the infrastructure needs to be beefed up. You're going to have 4 transmission lines that are 280 apiece coming into any big metropolitan area. On one route, you're going to have east, west, north and south
yeah,
feeding this massive hub. So that then begs the question: we got to build these power lines. We have to maintain this power system. What happens when a massive storm rolls through? And then what happens if you don't have people there to work?
yeah. People don't realize that, man, and it's unfortunate because and I think it just in the trade in general is not pushed as much as I'd like it to. And everybody's like, go to college, and then there's these guys out there like, I went to some massive college and I'm 60K in debt, and I'm not even doing my job that I need to do, and and it's like trying to spread the knowledge, like, hey, there is good money in construction, because I mean, it's that stigma of, oh, that's where you end up if you don't go to college. You'll be in a ditch digging, but you really won't. And I've seen guys start out pushing a wheelbarrow, and now they're for the IBEW and they're operating cranes, man. They're making hell of a bank
Yeah, I
working up
mean,
there in Seattle and stuff for the operators union. I know a couple of operators one guy works for Kiewit, man. He loves his job. And and I, especially in the line trade too, because I read about that. There's going to be a big shortage of electrical workers, and then it's unfortunate too, because you get TikTok and they see the money and they're like, oh, I just want the money. but they're not willing to put the work to get there.
Well,
I'm like, dude,
so
you gotta climb up first. You don't
yeah,
get to make all
but
that cheddar.
that's a two-way street, right? And
Yep.
the biggest gripe that we get, obviously, our advertising. We advertise the money because as men, we want to be providers and make money. That's just how we are wired. Um, a lot of people come for the money and stay for the brotherhood, right? Like you will
Yep.
not know about this trade until you get into it. And the only reason I know about it is because my brother is a lineman, journeyman lineman, and I film for electrical infrastructure companies. So I hang out or around linemen. Um, so I have a really good insight into the trade. Luckily, I've met higher ups. I deal, with corporate on a lot of stuff. So I kind of have almost two tiers where I've intervened with both the highest levels, the company COOs and the guys actually on the ground doing the work. And the trade's growing at 9% a year. That's a conservative number. I think it's much higher than that. And yeah, I almost wonder if there's an issue with the IBEW. Obviously, there needs to be done training, but if they make it too hard and limit the possibilities of getting in, what is that? That might push people to go non-IBEW. Maybe I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Um,
And at least for the local here, it's a pain. I walked in the dispatcher's office and she goes, darn, I haven't called a groundman in like 2 years. And I'm like, holy cow. And she pulled that book out, man. It was like signatures from months ago. And I was like, wow, it's just what's going on here, man. I'm like, dang. And I mean, I put on it a few times and I've put around, and that was the biggest thing is like people are like, they get discouraged when they don't get called. I'm like, keep trying. Actually, I had one guy message me back, and he was out in Oregon. He said, I got a tree call, and he goes, hey, I'll take it, And I was like, hey, dude, it's a start, Good luck, it's something. And I tell people, I'm like, be open to tree calls too, because that's a big one too. That'll get your foot in the door. Because some of them are like, oh, I don't want to work with trees. I'm like, dude, do it. I'm like, you got to go to power line clearance school and all that good stuff. And I'm like, why not?
yeah, Austin actually, how he got his start was in the tree business.
Yep, exactly.
He worked on trees, clearing for different utilities and whatnot before he even went to line school, I believe. Well, wait, maybe I don't know how it went, but I just know that he got that initial interview with the IBEW, which he got lucky on. It usually doesn't happen that fast, and they were like, "Yeah, go get 6 months of experience and come back to us." And thankfully, you got on, did well in the interview. But I don't know if it needs to be revamped. I know it's kind of old school, but there used to be such a massive influx of people in the trade. Like back in the '90s, it was booming. The guys didn't make as much money. It was you were there only for the brotherhood. Now,
Yep.
now you have potential to make great money and be part of the brotherhood. You know what I'm saying? So there's like,
Yeah.
it's the trade is different from the perspective of the brotherhood, right? Like, because you can almost make $150,000 in any trade anymore, like, if you're willing to maybe travel for work or you get on with the right outfit, right? The differentiator is that brotherhood community for sure. So
Yeah, you can't beat it. And I've worked with probably the next closest people I hold up is ironworkers, and
yeah,
then having that family, we would be up on the steel, and I was running safety for them, and it's this. I think that's the thing I took most away from was being around the guys and having that tight, close knit brotherhood, and I know that side's with the lineman side, and I have a lot of friends in it too, and I had family that did it, and yeah, that was one thing that it sticks close, and people won't know unless they're like veterans, maybe, because veterans know very well when they go out, across the seas, and they make that tight, close knit. It's kind of different concept, but same similarities. That's your partner on the line. You guys are close together. You have each other's lives in your hand essentially, and the same thing with hanging steel. You're up on this 200-300 foot in the air putting steel in, trying to wreck something. You're kind of essentially responsible for that guy, and that guy's responsible for you. So you are all you have up there with your buddies and stuff. So yeah, that's one big thing I think that was huge was the brotherhood. You can't beat it at all.
yeah. So I kind of skipped the whole introduction here. I started the podcast without introducing you. So if you want to give us the little, couple minute synopsis of who you are, what you do,
Oh yeah.
where you're going.
Yeah, so I'm John. I'm 31 years old. I started originally construction, probably I'd go all the way back to like 10 years old. My dad had a framing company. I'd spent many long, hot summers out there with him, and nothing was given. And I was kind of glad I was raised that way. Nothing was given. He was like, "Oh, you want those new shoes? Well, come out to the house with me. We'll snap some lines, and you can help cut wood and nail some stuff up, and I'll pay you like $40 a day." And I was like, "All right, cool." So I'm
That's
out
good
there all
money
summer
for.
long making like $40 a day. But I learned something because like as that went on, I could like read a tape measure, I could cut stuff, and and that used to be my regular summer job. Like I just go out working with him, and then when I got of age to where he could have me on, he was like, "All right, well, I want to make you part-time employee in the company, and then you'll just be full-time throughout the summers." And so even some days after school, I remember getting off the bus because where I was growing up, there was so many subdivisions being put up. I would get off and I'm like, "Hey, drop me off right here." And the bus driver's like, "That's not where you get off." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's my dad's truck. I'm going to work." And so put the book bag down. I got my tool belt out, and me and him built quite a few houses together, man. And it was hard labor, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. And then once I hit 18, I was like, "Dude, I'm going to be a firefighter. I'm going to go out and I'm going to do this." I wasn't going to get in construction. Well, plans changed, unfortunately. I got in a really bad accident when I was like 17 years old. I was almost 18. A gas can exploded on me, and 65% of my body's burned. Like I'm covered in skin
Ouch.
grafts, all the way down like third-degree burns from like my waist, my back, my legs, and my whole right arm. And so I was in a burn unit for like 4 months. Very lucky to be alive because I almost wasn't. I did like 6 months of therapy after, learned to walk, learned to use my right hand again because I was in bed for like so long and did so many surgeries. And so like things kind of got thrown off, and I was like, "All right, I can't be a fireman anymore. Obviously, like that's out the door for me." And so I started working for a company pushing dirt on a civil crew, and we worked very closely with that co-op, Silver Springs, where I was at. And I remember like learning all the different stuff, and like electricity like interested me from there. And I was like, "Hey, this is awesome," and got to do a lot of underground stuff. I did some inside wireman stuff with the guys there. And as time went on, it was kind of an unforeseen path for me. I started getting the safety. I was like, "Hey, this is interesting." So it was like, "Okay, you're going this direction." And from then on, though, I was like, after I got out of the field after quite a few years, I started just doing safety, and it's taken me all over, man. I've gotten to work for companies that were like IBEW stuff, and so I've gotten to bond really closely with linemen, line guys, wiremen guys, and so being around them and seeing what they do gave me a really good insight to not only what they do but the dangers they face and stuff. And so it's always captivated my interest. And so, like I said, right now I'm working for a civil company, but I'm trying to get on with Sturgeon Electric. That's a one company that's always had my eye as far as working for them. And so, yeah, so here we are, like, shoot, I think like 11, 12 years down the road, and still kicking in safety and still helping people with questions. I get a lot of questions each day about IBEW and all kinds of stuff. And so I was like, "Hey, when I took your class, I was like, dude, this is awesome. People need this stuff, need this
Yeah,
material
yeah.
out and answer questions." And so I'm like, either revert them to you or Powerline Podcast, them too. Ryan over there. Ryan's been helpful, hell, even with me. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm like, "Hey, these are two major outlets. You got one that can give you the material, and you got another guy that's always taking questions. I'm here to help." And so, yeah, that's kind of my backstory and how I got into construction. And I thought it wasn't going to be anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that's a crazy story, man. Like I had no idea.
Yeah.
We met virtually. We actually did a giveaway, and you won the giveaway, right? And I'm glad that
Yeah.
you went through that. So,
Yeah,
um,
no, it's awesome. And then, yeah, it was unfortunate about my accident, but I'm telling you what, though, the linemen that I've talked to that have not either A, have had a close call, or B, have not, when they see my arm and they're kind of like, "Oh shit, dude, holy crap." And I'm like, "Yeah, this is why you got to wear your stuff, man. Don't end up like me." Because I tell you what, that I'd rather have every bone in my body broken repeatedly every day than to ever experience the pain of the burns. Because, man, I tell you what, getting washed and clean was worse than actually being on fire. You got people scrubbing you down. I'm like, "Oh,
oh,
dude, no." And so, yeah, I had actually the guy in Sturgeon too that interviewed me yesterday. He was arc flash, and he's burned on his neck, and he's got a skin graft on his arm. And he was like, "Hey, dude, is that a skin graft in your arm?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh man, I thought my little patch right here was bad. Your whole body's like that." I'm like, "Yeah, it's pretty gnarly." So it's lucky and fortunate to be here.
Well, it's almost like a calling that you end up in safety though, because
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
you have like that experience. I don't know how many safety guys really have that. You lived it, right? You have actual reason to come and say no. This stuff does matter. Like be safe, because otherwise, trust me, you don't want to go through this, right? Um,
Yeah, I've had that several times. Talk with somebody. Unfortunately, I had a guy. We were de-energizing a transformer. And it was a big boy. Had to have a 40 cal suit on. They're like, dude, we need to have this as part of our protocol. Well, one of the foremen comes in and goes, give me the stick. He was going to shut it off. And I'm like, hey, bro, you can't. No, because if this arc flashes back, he's in the right stuff. Well, he's new. And I said, all right, well, I get that. And the guy's like, oh, I can do this. And he's just put the brakes on this transformer, essentially disconnecting here. And I said, yeah, we need to be out of the radius. And finally, we were in the long sleeves, and I pulled my sleeves up and I said, trust me, bro, you don't want to get flashed. And he just was like, oh, shit. And he goes, all right. I got you, man. He stood back and he asked me, he goes, dude, you get flashed? And I said, no, I was burned, but it's the same thing, dude. You're going to get skin grafts from that, man. I said, that's the worst pain possible. And he was really respectful of it. And he was pretty cool. He's like, yeah, man. He's like, I'm just used to jumping in. I'm like, I get it, bro. But please, that's one thing I don't want to see anybody go down that path. And that's why I do what I do. I have a passion for it. Anything to help people out from experiencing the same fate or getting hurt. It's like, dude, I'm not ever tell you how to do your job. But if there's something that you have a potential to face the same fate I did or worse, I'm gonna make sure you don't do that. So that way you can go back to your family the way you came to work, essentially.
yeah, I mean most rules in the trade. I mean, they're written in blood, essentially, right? If you go back to the late 1800s, early 1900s, I mean, I think it was like 1 in 4 linemen were dying on the pole. I don't know what the stat is. I know there's some
Yeah,
stat,
it was pretty gnarly.
but it was like,
I remember seeing that.
yeah, like 1 in 4 linemen don't come home from work, because they had no idea what they were doing. And with the introduction of the IBEW, that's obviously the reason that they introduced that whole union brotherhood to protect the workers essentially, from that. And then now, I know the rules can be somewhat burdensome, right? Like following all the
Yeah,
protocols, but there's probably a reason protocols are written. I know some of them are maybe a little extensive. I've talked to a lot of guys in the field, and they're like, yeah, this is the company saving their butt, but also it is, you're working with very, very dangerous, laws of this
you
world.
only get one chance, and it's that one chance you take. You risk your life with it. And
Yeah, I mean, when you
and I
flash,
agree with you though. There's things I look at manuals and I'm like, I know. I was like, I'm sorry, I don't make the rules. I just want to see everybody go home. And I'm like, I'm sorry. And I've had guys bitch at me, I hate this, and even the small stuff, they're like, I don't want to put this thing on. I have to wear my shield and everything. And I'm like, I know, but hey, it's better to have it and not need it. And I've seen guys get hit by small stuff and they're like, thank God I have the shield on, because there's one guy that he got flashed and luckily it only got his ear and part of his neck. But he was like, dude, if I didn't have my shield on, I would have been done. Like that would have been it. So I'm like, it's that 1% chance that shit can go wrong. And I don't want to see that happen to anybody.
yeah, it's insane. That's pretty cool. So where are you kind of at in the process of getting on? Obviously, you're working civil right now in safety, but what? Because you're in the meat of it right now. I haven't interviewed somebody who's
Yeah.
in the meat of it. What's that process like right now?
Oh man, I've been through the ringer with Sturgeon, and it's not in any way their fault. My recruiter, so halfway through, my recruiter quit, and so what happened was I was supposed to meet with a director, pretty much of safety, and introduce myself, and I didn't hear from her like weeks, and so I like sent an email, and they're like, "Sorry, this person's no longer with us. You need to direct all attention to this person." So I hit that person up, didn't get anything. And I'm like, when I'm hungry to get on something,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna get on. Dude, I made a LinkedIn and I started finding people that worked at that branch. I'm like, yo, who do I talk to? Like I made it all nice. I'm like, this is who I am, this is where I'm at in the process. Who I need to talk to? Well, I listened to Raul, he does the other Powerline podcast, he does the other stuff. And I started messaging him and I'm like, hey man, I've been an avid follower for years. I got a question. You work for Sturgeon. Who can I get a hold of? But all in all, it's a long process. It's nothing easy, and obviously for the right reason. Because to me, you're putting somebody as essentially responsible for people's lives in a seat where they're supposed to monitor these guys and mentor and coach them. And you don't want to put just anybody out there like, oh, you got safety certifications, just go sit there. Because you're going to get somebody that can get killed. And that's because that person might not be knowledgeable. And so after I got a hold of the right recruiter, I reapplied, went through one interview, and I just went through my final, like the other 3 that I went through. Now I'm just waiting for a call back now. And I mean, we got along on a good level. I mean, I got along with them. Like I said, it's a great company I've had my eye on. And a couple of my buddies know them. They're like, dude, they said the same thing. They're like, once you're in, bro. Like that is a good job to have. And I was like, dude, that's where I want to be. That's what I want to do. And I just kind of want to retire from it, And, I can always learn stuff. And I love that too, because I've had so many people that I've done like consulting with IBEW companies that I've learned a lot from the linemen. I love asking questions. I'm like, hey, I'm not bird dog, and I just want to know, like, why do you do that? Why do you hook that up? And so I'm like, cool, shit's interesting to me, man. Like, I'm learning stuff along the way, not only the safety aspect, but like how and why you guys do things. And so, that process is lengthy, but hopefully it's going to pay off and be worth it now. And,
hopefully, I mean, it's coming. That call's coming.
yeah, man. It's getting there. And like I said, I was hungry because once my recruiter quit, it sucked because I was like, all right, because I'd already gotten postponed before that. Like I went to a phone interview with her. The job posting closed. They said, hey, not right now. And then she's like, hey, do you want to go over to like California? And I was like, yeah, I'm like 3 hours away. Sure. I know that area. Cool. And then I got in touch with the people there. It was all train was gaining momentum. And all of a sudden, poof, like what happened? I'm like, no. And so like I said, I was like motivated. I'm like, I'm not gonna let this opportunity slip up. What can I do to get this going? Because I hit up the person's email, didn't get a response back. So I'm like, all right, called, left the voicemail. I'm like, shit, all right, we're not getting anywhere, and I don't want to be looked over. So I made a LinkedIn, man. I'm like, all right, these people work here. I started messaging. I'm like, hey, not to be a creeper, but I'm at this and this process. Who can I talk to so I don't lose my spot, essentially? And finally, they're like, dude, there's nothing we can do. These recruiters, that's what they're paid to do. One guy's like, I can probably message somebody and send them a note and let them know, like, hey, you're reaching out. And finally, like, I think he got through because, like, the next day I got a call. And I was like, oh, shit, I'm getting a call back finally. Here we go.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, obviously, you're getting into the trade, you know about the trade, and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Where do you see, what does it look like 5 years from now, in your opinion?
To me, it's going to be, well, at least to me, it's going to be more technologically advanced. And I think that's construction in general, especially with the line trade. Everything is going to start advancing in every aspect, tools, everything we use, everything. Everybody wants to put a battery on everything we use. Mm-hmm. And then gets more and more advanced. And I keep telling people, I said that even no matter what trade you're in, hell, you can look at even carpenters, a lot of tools they use. They're like, oh, we used to be manual, and now we got stuff that just does it for us. But also we're losing people at a number rate for the power industry, unfortunately. And I've seen the shortage, and it's kind of scary because it's like, man, who answers that call when stuff goes down, and it's kind of sad because it's like, the trade isn't dying, but I don't think people are necessarily educated enough to know what it is and who the people are. Nobody really thinks about that. They like, oh, flip a switch, my electricity comes on, but they really don't know who's down the line working on that, getting that going. You had a tornado rip through your town, like those guys that are putting it back up and doing the work and stuff. And so I think that trade essentially needs a little more exposure. And and I think it's an awesome trade to get in. I think anybody who has obviously the motivation to do it, put the hard work in, do their time, can make a great living off of it. And especially since now, I guess, everything's going electric, we're going to have to beef up our grids for sure. And I was actually just talking to a buddy of mine about that out in San Diego. He was like, dude, they're trying to make everything electric. Like, there's going to be some serious work needed, and especially underground, because not even that, like underground's going to get big because like California, for instance, you have a lot of wildfires out there. And so now their thing is, what can we put under the ground to, keep from having to shut people's power off and keep wildfires from happening when the winds are bad, and it's going to get busy. The work's there, but the trade needs more exposure. And I think it's going to get more advanced as these years go on all around.
Yeah, what do you think that looks like for exposure though? Like, how do you get the trade more exposure?
Uh, You know what? I think it's, you know what, and I know some locals do it and some don't, but I think as much as these other recruiters, like Army recruiters and stuff, they go to schools and they set up things. That's what they got to start doing, man. Like, hey, bring something out, do demonstrations. I've seen a couple um, different utilities, like they do a demonstration at their buildings of, like, arcing and all that. And I'm like, dude, if you bring that to a high school, show the demonstration. Just kind of let the kids put on the gear. Let them see what it is. Let them get exposed to it. Kind of tell them what it is. Let them know about the IBEW. Let them know who you are, what you guys do. Because the more you do that, and more you visit these colleges or these high schools, essentially, kids, man, they're like, and they're thinking too, especially a lot of them seniors are getting out. They're like, dude, what am I going to do? And especially they see that, and you're like, oh yeah, you can make good money. It's stable, year-round work. Obviously, everybody needs power. You could be making great money by the time you journey out here a few years or so, and it's like that's going to captivate them, especially get those kids that are motivated through high school and want to do that type of work. That's how I think you start getting it out there who they are. Because at least for me, when I was at high school, all I seen was military, and I think the fire department was there. But I'm like, if a local gets something together and goes to these schools, because and that's actually brings up a good point, because my buddy was doing something. He's out of 75, local 75 for the ironworkers, and they just went to Holbrook High School.
Yeah.
Set up a little thing, what the ironworkers are. They brought some tools out, kind of giving the trade some exposure. And I think the IBEW ought to do something to that. Bring some linemen out with some different utilities in the area. Let them talk. Let them see what everything is. Maybe do some presentations on stuff, and let these kids kind of take it in. Because it's like I said, man, if I would have known about that, but obviously God had a different plan for me with my accident. But kids they're looking for what to do after high school, and let them know, like, this isn't just some small job you're going to get into and not be able to make it. You put your time in, you're going to have a good living by the time you're in your 20s. Like,
yeah,
you put the time in, you're good.
You'll make multiple six figures if you want as a journeyman. You can work storms. Austin was actually just working with a guy in California. And he grossed like $530,000 last year. Now, granted, exactly. You don't really have a life at that point. You're working constantly, but that's $530,000. Your rite of passage, you'll work for 5 years, right? You give up 5 years. You make so much money that you can literally work the 3 months that it storms, make your $120,000, and take 8 months off if you want.
Yeah.
That is,
and you're gonna wait. You're gonna give up 5 years for college and not get paid.
Exactly.
So why not get paid to go to work? They say, earn while you learn. Like, why not go to work, make money? You're getting the same thing. You're not in debt. It's a great career, and I think, like, honestly, I think that's why it needs some more exposure. And if IBEW gets out there and holds those things at these high schools and stuff, you're going to get a lot more people like, hey, how do I get in? What do I need to do? And give them contacts at the IBEW. Like, come talk to me. Come see what it's about. Give them some cards like, hey, this is who you call. And obviously it's different with each local, but if the locals do that, man, I'm telling you, there's going to be a lot more people coming in, and that'll kind of start evening out your shortage coming in, especially with all these kids graduating. They're, what can I do to make good money? Where can I go? And they always get stuck in the mindset like, I got to go to college. I don't want to do that. I want to be outside doing something. And once they figure it out, they're like, oh shit, I can be doing something outside and make good money, and I ain't in debt. Sign me. Where do I go? How do I sign up?
Yeah, one of the big things that me and Austin, was actually Austin's idea, is we want Livewire Academy in high schools, because it's a great introduction platform to what it is, to pique interest.
Yep.
Strictly on the fact that kids do not know about it. Unless a family member is in the trade, you have no idea. Zero idea. In fact,
none at all.
We've had 2 people. We put them through the course because we know them personally. But they went to become machinists. A vocational school, spent $60,000, and they came out the other side and they decided they didn't want to do that anymore. So they wanted to become linemen, but they had no idea how to become linemen. Do I need to go to line school? Who do I ask? Who do I call? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, they have no idea where to start. I'm consuming YouTube videos, which there's nothing wrong with that. Our whole basis here is time collapse, right? So if I'm going to spend 2 months researching YouTube videos and trying to make a decision if this is the career that I want to get into, why don't you take a weekend, take 5 hours where all the information is compiled to make a decision, right? Because it's all there.
Yeah.
It's done. No more searching for X, Y, and Z. Our whole point in that is like high schoolers. Let's help them make a decision. Let's help them plant this idea in their brain that this is something that I might want to do. How do we get into context? The other thing too is, and I don't know how we do this, but become some sort of IBEW backed resource. I mean, we're very pro IBEW. Obviously, Austin's part of the union, where we can actually facilitate things and set up things with locals to the point of kids can go out and learn how to climb poles or whatever. Learn about these things on the job site because as much as the trade exists, I'm very scared for the fact that everything's going towards batteries. Like, what happens when everyone drives an electric vehicle, but the infrastructure cannot handle electric vehicles? You can't have 1,000 people at a mega apartment unit charging their electric vehicles. It's not possible with the current infrastructure. I mean,
Yep.
1 out of every 50 cars on the road right now is an electric vehicle. Imagine when 50 out of 50 are. Imagine the power usage. So then that begs the question, like, different power sources have to be built. Like, you got to go back to nuclear or something, and then you have to transmit that power somehow. You got to build substations, switching stations. You got to build a bunch of transmission structures and string the line and distribution structures, and you know.
Yeah, you got so much work that's going into it. And that's what I'm saying. I'm like, it's going to get more advanced, and there's going to be a really big boom and need for this because sooner or later, yeah, people are going to be realizing like, oh shit, we're putting a lot of strain on our stuff. We need these guys to start
California
building
already
things.
is like California systems rolling blackouts every year.
It's already happening out there.
So it's like, and I'm afraid like I'm in Phoenix. Like that's gonna start happening here, but the amount of people moving here, I don't know how much power generation. I know we shut down some nuclear plants pretty recently, so I mean maybe we could go fully solar. I don't know if that's even a possibility. I'm sure it is. You'd probably have to have some massive solar farms. But still, you have to transmit that power, and you have to maintain that transmission even underground. If you have an issue with underground, you still got to maintain that system. You don't just set and forget it, right?
Nope. It requires a body to be there and working on it and doing it, and somebody that's in it. So yeah, it's scary, man. There's a need, and this would be a good time for them, to start advertising, especially get beefing up that workforce because it's like I said, it's the technology out there is going to really be booming. Everybody's going to need power, especially with everybody moving to electric cars and stuff's already happening. It's like, dude, you gotta get out there. Now, that whole back to ABW, I think that would be a good start too. Is like talk to locals, see if they would sponsor you and be like, hey, can you use our videos? Can we have your help? Because that would be bigger too. And not a lot of people know about unions. They just go where they learn on YouTube. And I mean, how many other guys you find that's like, it's great. And you got one guy says, oh, don't do it. It's the worst experience ever. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah, and it's make a decision, right? It's like time collapse. How fast can I make a decision? You're gonna pay for this either in money or you're gonna pay for it in time. Like that. Those are really your two ways you pay for anything. I'm gonna pay for this with dollars, or I'm gonna pay for it with time. And the thing is like with anything, if I come in and I can learn something in a week and I can be making money a month from now, I essentially just time collapsed versus if it took me 2 years of dilly-dallying around and to make a decision, I just lost a year and a half, a year and 10 months of potential income and potential betterment on this career path, right?
Yeah.
Like information is the greatest resource or asset anybody has because if you don't know how or where or what type of tools do I need to buy? The best thing ever too with Livewire is we actually worked out discounts with tool suppliers. So the amount of money you spend on the course, you are actually saving more than that amount on your initial tool purchase. So like you will save the amount of money just in tool purchases alone. So it's virtually free information, right?
Yep, exactly. No, that's what I tell people, and I let him know. I had somebody message me about your video and was like, "Oh yeah, I think I'm gonna take that because I'm looking to get in." He was out of Florida, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I think that's local like 222." And I was like, "Yeah, I know where you're at." And I was like, "Yeah, look it up. You know, let him know Sticks sent you down there." But hopefully he does it because he's like, "Yeah, I want to be a lineman. I'm looking into it." I'm like, "That'll go over everything you need to know," which I loved about your class because people don't know what tools do I need, what kind of boots do I need, knots. I'm like, you need to know knots, you know, tie stuff, you know, you put it hanging cross arms, putting buckets up and down. I'm like, you need to know that type of thing because it's very essential. People don't
Yeah.
realize that. And that was another great thing about your videos. It's like it's opening light, like, oh shit, there's a little more to it than I thought.
Yeah, we're actually we're working on a couple more modules with some veterans in the trade. So people who've been in the trade for 20 years, and things like when you get an interview opportunity with the apprenticeship, what is that like? What do I need to say? What do they want to hear, right? So it's literally preparing you to be successful, to set up,
Yeah.
right? And obviously, we give out tons of free information. We already tell you how to do it for free. I'm not going to give you the course for free, but well, we gave you won the giveaway. But um, if you want, guys, if you want to become a lineman, get your Class A CDL with no restrictions, your safety card, your first aid certified, and flagger's card. That's all you need. Go sign the books. That's it, right?
Yeah.
If you want to be more prepared and have more confidence getting into the trade, then invest into something like Livewire Academy. Even check out Powerline Podcast. I'm sure it's probably going to take you a little bit longer to learn the information just because it's not condensed in video form like we have it. But I'm just saying, figure it out and figure it out fast. Like make the decision and then do it. Don't spend 60 grand or don't go spend 20,000 on a vocational school if you don't know this is what you want.
Yeah,
to do.
no.
Because
No, and I've seen a lot of guys do that too that are like, man, I went to line school. It was a waste of time. Like everything I'm doing out here now, I could have been doing for free.
You
I'm
get
like,
paid.
yeah.
You literally get paid in the IBEW. The IBEW is the line school.
Yeah.
Newsflash.
That's what I tell everybody. I'm like, no, I was like, I'm not for line school. Like, is it beneficial? It can be, but
Some of them actually don't even give you your Class A CDL now, which I didn't know, but you're going to spend $20,000 and not get a Class A CDL, which is like
it was extra when I looked at the program because I was like, oh, what is it all about? I looked into it. You got to pay extra to get it, and I was like, good God.
Yeah, it's going to cost. It's going to cost you about.
It was like $800 or $900 to extra to take that course and get your CDL. I was like,
if you go get your CDL as is, you could probably find someone get it for $4,000 ish, and get it in like a couple weeks. If you invest straight amount of time, you can get it in like a couple weeks. You can easily get it in a month. Your flagger's card's cheap. It's like $140 in a class.
Yeah,
and then CPR certified is literally, just look up CPR certification near me, and it's like $100.
Well, hell, even local fire stations. I tell people when they need that, I say go check your local fire station because the ones that I've been around, they'll host a free seminar, and I'm like, it's through the American Heart Association. That's what you need. Just attend that little class, do your tests, and I was like, they'll have you out, and that's all you need is that little card saying, hey, I took CPR first aid AED class. You're golden. I was like, you can find a lot of places now that do that. I was like, hell, they have, I think here in Vegas at least, they have a building set for that, and that's all they do is rotate classes out. Pay your $40-$50 in there, go take it, get your card, you're on your way out.
Yeah, so for anyone wondering the question, how much does it actually cost to become a lineman? You're probably going to be in about seven grand between tools and certifications. Mm-hmm. Like that's about it. That's pretty much how much it's going to cost you out the gate.
It's going to be the best. It's an investment though, and everybody sees that like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah, but your tools essentially, and I would tell people that too in the ironworker trade, your tools make you money. That's really what it is. Your tools make you money. So when you're spending all that money, just remember, you spend money to make money essentially. So I'm like, those tools are going to make you so much more money than you actually paid on. Like when you get down the road and you work those storms and you put in all your hours, just know you might have spent a lot on that, but it just made you double. It made you way, way more.
You're going to spend about $7,000 getting in, but I mean, that's a month and a half maybe. As a groundman, I mean, like some groundmen, depending on where you are and who you get on with, I mean, you could earn $90,000 I think Austin earned like 94,000 his first year, first step apprentice, which is really good. I think that's better than most states. But he was in the Northwest and Washington and Oregon, where you make great pay scales. So, uh, yeah, it's an initial investment. But if you're trying to get in the trade and you don't have any money, you got a credit card, figure it out. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're gonna make that money back, and you're gonna make it
Yeah.
back exponentially. If you're a lineman and you get your journeyman, your golden ticket, you're gonna make 300,000 a year if you want to. So what is
No, you're
$7,000?
yeah,
Um,
you're gonna be well off. It's an investment. That's why I tell everybody that. I was like, think of it as an investment. You're investing in your career and in your livelihood. And I was like, because this is your career. Like once you're on that path and you're starting, I was like, that's your career. Like invest a little bit in, and at least it's better than giving some college $50,000 at for nothing. And I'm like, you're only investing $7K, and that's for something. That's for your tools. That's it's gonna actually make you money.
mm-hmm.
Weigh your options there. It's like it's yeah. And I think anybody looking to get in the line trade, they ought to look at your course, check it out. And I'm like, there's it's a good condensed course. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I try to tell everybody, I'm like, go check this guy out, go check him out. If you have more and more questions, I'm like, and you're hungry enough and you want to do it, just
Yeah,
invest in 5 hours, get it done.
if you're worried about the money or the whatever, like I already said, it's virtually free. We have 110% money back guarantee. Like if you feel like you didn't learn the information, we would literally pay you like $25 and reimburse you your full amount. Like we just will, because if you feel like, okay, I didn't learn what I needed to learn, I don't feel confident getting in the trade, we don't even want your money anyway. Because if you're not going to use this information to better yourself, to get into the trade, get the savings on the tools and the discounts, it's like, cool. Oh, here's your money in 10%, right? Like there is literally no risk, right? There's only upside, and it's strictly an investment into the information, right? It's like this is proprietary information. You're not going to actually get. The biggest thing is you're not really going to get that much information, or a one-on-one sit down with somebody who goes over and explains everything. Like you might get the basics, but you're not getting the type of knots and how to tie them, right? The knot websites. You're not getting here's a video on how exactly to go apply for an apprenticeship or a groundman position. Like this is step by step exactly how you do it.
You're not going to get that from anybody unless you know somebody personally.
Yeah, and even then, they're still probably not going to show you. They're probably going to say, "Go figure it out."
Like,
so
go figure it out, kid. Go down the road. Go figure it out.
Yeah, it's essentially like somebody walking with you step by step of the way. Like this is exactly how to do it because I did it. This is not like some BS stuff or whatever. And like that's the whole point of the program. And we're not trying to sit here and rip people off. We're just trying to provide good information, to get them in. And obviously, like we appreciate you vouching for it. We think it's a great program. Obviously, like the information I said is very proprietary. In fact, that it was taught by somebody who just completed the apprenticeship program in 2020, right? It's very fresh information. And we also want to get veterans in the trade too, right? To give more industry insight, what it's like, what foremen really are looking for on a job site, how to treat them, like what's your role as a groundman, because it's scary, right? I think the whole thing with like trade fairs is it's scary. These kids don't know what to expect, right? And they don't really have these personal connections anymore. They learn everything on an iPhone. We tried to our goal is to bring it there, to get them comfortable with the idea that, hey, this is something I might want to do, pique their interest, right? And once their interest is piqued, hopefully they eventually get into the Brotherhood and become a great, part of the IBEW, become a part of that. Now, obviously it's not for everybody, but it's for some people, and it needs to be for a lot more if we're continue to progress at this current rate, right? Just with the electricity and the infrastructure. So,
oh yeah,
I ramble a little bit, but I'm a little passionate about it.
No, you're all right.
We have this thing. This is called the Blue Collar Blueprint podcast. Our actual goal is to create things similar to Livewire Academy for like the 10 major trades on how to get in, and then introduce them to high schools, where it's 5 hours of information with somebody who's actually in the trade, where They learn how much money they can make. They learn what kind of certifications they need. How long is it until I can become a journeyman? Should I join the union? Like all of these things that they will literally not learn anywhere else. They just won't because no one's going to teach them. Like somebody's
Yep,
got to teach them.
exactly.
If it's in high schools and they take it and it's kind of essential. Hey, I want to become a plumber. Well, how do I become a plumber? I Google how to become a plumber. I don't know. I'll tell you what right now. If I'm in high school, I'm not making a phone call on how to become a plumber. If I got a video course on how to become a plumber, I'll go through the course if it's free to me in high school.
Exactly.
I'll go through
Exactly.
it. Now, oh, I can make $130,000 a year as a plumber, right? What do I need to do, right? Oh, this is how you do it. This is how you get in. This is how you get a job. What's the future of the job look like? What's the expansion rate look? What are the best states to work in? Where do you make the most money? Do you get to travel? Other travel opportunities? Like I said, is there an apprenticeship program? Do I need to go to a trade school, vocational school? How much does it cost? Like what type of tools do I need? Like these are all questions that take essentially 3 to 4 years to answer on our own because we don't hyper focus on them. But if we can condense all that information into short form where these kids get to just absorb and decide versus like college is like this big drawn out 4 year thing where no decisions are made. They're like, I'm going to
Yeah.
be a business major. How do we give them just enough information where they say, this is what I want to do or this is what I don't want to do? Or, hey, I'm interested and I want to learn more. And we have a link, hey, just call X, Y, and Z and set up a consultation and, they'll help you decide if this is a good trade for you.
Yes, sir.
And I think just for the trades, like the trades are missing that heavily. And I think
Oh yeah.
it's because you put your head down and you just get up and go to work every day. You bust ass. You do what you need to do. And we haven't been focused on that, right? The next mega boom is the trades. The economy is going to be better than it's ever been in 3 years. So in 5 years, we're going to be booming. We're going to be building at astronomical rates. We got to get kids in somehow because robots right now aren't going to build it all.
Yeah, nope, and yeah, that starts with the high schools, man. And you're taking that course essentially and cutting out all the middle work of YouTube, and I'm trying to figure everything out. And it's like, boom, here it is, right in front of you. What you need to know, and then at least if I'm a high schooler, I'm going, okay, yeah, I want in, or I'm going, oh, nope, that's not for me.
Yeah, and then it's on to the next. Like, do I want to be a welder? Well, what does a welder do? What is welding? Like, okay, how do I do it? If my school doesn't have shop class and I don't know what welders do, how do I know if I want to become a welder? You don't know. Like, how do I know if I want to become a mechanic? How do I know? And they have no idea. They have no exposure to the trades. They have literally none. Now I know it's almost an impossible feat based on the fact that colleges control it all. But my hope is that we can somehow wiggle our way into at least a few communities and like just give exposure. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah. I got to advertise it as hard as they advertise for college, pretty much. And, letting them know there is another route. You're not just stuck like, okay, I got to go to college. I have to do this because that's the only way you get a job, and giving them that pretty much that saying, hey, you can also get in the trades. You can also do this. And, hey, if you watch this course, take this course, do this thing, this will help you navigate, cut all the middle work out, and help you get on your way to where you need to be. And I think that's honestly in just all trades is because at least when I took my ASVAB in school, I remember they're like, this is just to see where you're at, what jobs you've got at. I got firefighter, law enforcement, and some other stuff. I'm like, why can't you put like construction work in there or like some other stuff they would be good at? That's always just the normal firefighter or cop or go in the military and do this. It's like, okay. And kids think like, okay, that's what I'm stuck with. There's nothing else that I'm going to be good at. But it's like, man, and there's a lot of kids out there like, I like being outdoors. I like doing stuff outdoors. And when you're, hey, good for you. We've got the job for you.
We actually
help you out.
I don't know if you've seen our trade test, but we like have a trade test where you can go in and answer 18 questions, and it really gives you like an idea if that you might be a good fit for the trade. It's completely free. You just go take the trade test and figure out do I like heights, right? Like, okay, well, if you're gonna be a lineman, you probably can't be afraid of heights. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, nope.
And if you guys are interested, just hit the link below. I'll link the trade test. This will be on YouTube and all the podcast platforms, but I'll put a link below and just take the test. I mean, it'll give you a good idea.
Exactly.
At least a place where to start, in understanding. And if you want to learn what alignment is or what it do, just watch the rest of the videos on our YouTube channel or DM people like John or whatever. Listen to the Powerline podcast, and you'll get a really good insight.
Yeah, you'll get the information. Like I said, I'm always up for questions. So people that hit me up, they're like, "Hey, man, I got a question for you about this." I answer so many. Like I had 2 on my TikTok that actually popped up, and they said, "Hey, I'm thinking about getting a union. How do I go about it?" And I'm like, "What are you trying to do?" And they're like, and this guy just wanted to be an inside wireman. And I'm like, all right, well, you need to Google where you're at. You need to go there. Talk to dispatchers. I said, with electricians, it's a little different. I was like, you got to take a test. You got to furnish these documents. Let them know. And I said, the best way to do it, just go in and talk to them because they can put a face with the name, get to know your dispatchers, get to know the person. I said, more often than not, you're going to catch a coordinator at the IBEW. They'll help you with everything. And I was like, and they'll tell you like, hey, you need to come in, take an aptitude test. I need your transcripts and all the stuff that you took math, so on and so forth. If you have all that with you, bring it. Go in there. And then I've had other questions like I want to be a lineman. And it depends because I know certain, like at least with Envy Energy, you have to take an aptitude test before you even apply for them. They are union, but it's like, dude, you cannot get on with them without that aptitude test. I had one guy, hey, I'm moving to Vegas. I want to get on with Envy Energy. I'm like, well, first thing when you get here, go to CSU. You need to let them know you're taking an aptitude test for Envy Energy. I was like, it's like $30. It's going to show them how you score on your algebra and on all your math areas and whatnot, and technical stuff. They'll print the scores out, and then when it opens, get in. And I've had people all the way down like, is it easy to get in that CalNev JTC? And I'm like, yeah, I'll be honest, it's kind of hard, but if you're persistent, stick with it. And I said, and to be open to other areas. I'm like, look it up. I was like, you might have to travel. I know a lot of guys that had to do that. Like, well, shit, open calls over here. So yeah. I'm going to have to jump in my car and go down there and apply. But yeah, I'm an open book. So you can ask me anything, and I hope y'all get you pointed in the right direction.
All right, John. Well, I appreciate it. It's getting a little late, but
no,
I appreciate
awesome.
The conversation. A lot of good insights, and like I said before this interview, I like to do my podcast just randomly, like people I just haven't met, and just like, hey, how's it going? And see how the conversation goes. They usually go pretty well. So,
this has been great. I appreciate it.
If there's anything you want to add, now would be the time to add that. So. Anything you want to say to the potential listeners?
For you, thanks for having me on, man. And potential listeners, just keep at it. I get a lot of people that just get discouraged because they don't get called on the books. Don't get discouraged. Keep at it. Look around. Ask questions. I was like, and, everybody has good resources, and just, know you may have to travel for it. And I promise you, it'll be worth it. And, spread the word, and the people that are in the trades that are out there, man, spread the word, get it out there. And IBEW is the way to go. And I appreciate your time and having me on here.
Of course. If anyone wants to learn a little bit more about the trade as well, go to our careers page on learnlivewire.com. There's a bunch of free information there. Gives you a little bit of the overview, kind of the pros, cons, benefits of the trade, and whatnot. So, thanks, John. I very much appreciate it. And
hey, anytime.
Until next time.